I thought about every small moment I'd ignored over the past few months. The extra coffee she'd quietly left on my desk during late nights. The way she'd remembered my mother's surgery without me reminding her. How her voice softened whenever we spoke alone, only to become distant again the moment someone entered the room. Had she been noticing me too? This would only be temporary, she said. 1 year. Public appearances. Family dinners. Nothing else. Nothing else. Then why did those words sound more disappointing than reassuring? I should have stood up. I should have thanked her and walked away before my feelings grew into something impossible. Instead, I remained in the chair. She stepped closer and gently rested her hand on my forearm, almost as if she regretted doing it the instant she did. "You don't have to answer today," she murmured. Her hand lingered. And before I could stop myself, I looked into her eyes and almost admitted the truth I'd been hiding from both of us. I opened my mouth. "Claire." A sharp knock on the office door shattered the silence. She stepped back so quickly it was as if the last few seconds had never happened. "Come in." Her assistant entered with a tablet. "Your grandfather just arrived unexpectedly. He's asking for you, and he'd like to meet the young man you've been talking about." Claire's shoulders stiffened. "So soon?" she asked. "I'm afraid so." The assistant disappeared, leaving the door gently clicking shut behind her. Neither of us spoke. "So," I finally said, forcing a nervous laugh, "you've already told him about me." "I had to." She looked down at the floor. "His doctors don't think he has much time. Every day he asks if I've found someone who'll still be beside me after he's gone." There it was again, that loneliness she worked so hard to hide. The powerful CEO everyone admired suddenly looked like a daughter trying not to disappoint the only family she had left. "I never wanted to drag you into this," she whispered. "But I couldn't think of anyone else I'd trust. I should have reminded myself this was only a contract." Instead, I noticed the tiny details that made walking away harder. The faint circles beneath her eyes, the untouched cup of coffee growing cold on her desk, the way she kept twisting the simple silver ring on her finger, a habit I'd seen before whenever she was under pressure. She wasn't pretending to be strong. She was exhausted from pretending she wasn't falling apart. "I can tell him no," I said quietly. She looked up. "You don't owe me anything." For a moment, her guarded expression cracked. Gratitude mixed with something warmer. Something she quickly tried to hide. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, took a slow breath, and met my eyes. "My grandfather is waiting downstairs." She hesitated before gently slipping her hand into mine. "Will you come with me, just this once?" I knew I should let go. Instead, my fingers closed around hers as we walked toward the elevator together. The elevator felt impossibly small. Neither of us let go. I could hear the quiet hum of the cables, the soft rhythm of her breathing, and my own heartbeat pounding louder than either of them. Just before the doors opened, Claire slowly slipped her hand away. "We have to look convincing," she said, though her voice sounded as if she were trying to convince herself. Her grandfather was waiting in the private lounge, wrapped in a light blanket despite the warm afternoon. His face lit up the moment he saw us walk in together. "So," he smiled, "this is the young man." Claire moved beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. "Grandpa, this is Ethan." The older man reached for my hand with surprising strength. "Take care of her." For simple words. I wasn't prepared for how heavily they landed. He talked for nearly 20 minutes, telling stories about Claire as a little girl, the stubborn child who worked too hard, skipped vacations, and always carried the weight of everyone else's problems. Claire barely spoke. She just stared at the floor. When we finally stepped into the empty hallway, she leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. "I hate lying to him." Her voice cracked. "I've spent my whole life pretending I'm fine. Pretending I don't go home to an empty apartment. Pretending work is enough." I took one slow step closer. "You don't have to pretend with me." Her eyes opened. For the first time since I'd met her, they weren't guarded. "They'll think I manipulated you," she whispered. "People already judge the age difference before they know anything about us. I don't care what they think." The words escaped before I could stop them. Neither of us moved. She searched my face as if looking for permission to believe me. Then, almost trembling, she lifted her hand and gently touched my cheek. "I need to know something, Ethan." The hallway fell completely silent. If there were no contract, no money, no expectations. She held my gaze. "Would you still choose me?" Her question stole every excuse I had left. "If there were no contract." I repeated, barely above a whisper. "There isn't any more." I looked at her, confused. "What?" Claire reached into her purse, pulled out the agreement, and tore it cleanly down the middle. Then again. And again. The pieces drifted into the hallway trash bin. "No money," she said. "No deal." I stared at her. "You just destroyed it." "Because I realized something the second you told my grandfather you didn't owe me anything." Her voice shook. "You were the first person to care whether I was lonely, instead of caring that I was wealthy." Before I could answer, the elevator doors opened. A member of the executive board stepped out, his expression darkening the instant he saw us together. "So the rumors are true." Claire straightened instinctively. I wondered why a junior employee was suddenly getting private meetings with the CEO. His eyes shifted toward me. "Did she buy your affection, or did you ask for a bigger price?" The words hit like a slap. I saw Claire open her mouth, ready to defend me. I spoke first. "That's enough." The hallway fell silent. "I've never taken a single dollar from her." The board member gave a skeptical laugh. "Then explain why she chose you." I turned toward Claire before answering. "Because she believed I was honest." I took a slow breath. "And because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing her as my boss." Claire's eyes widened. "I started seeing the woman who skipped lunch because she was buried in work, the woman who smiled only when nobody was watching, the woman who thought she had to face everything alone." The board member looked between us, suddenly uncertain. Claire reached for my hand. This time she didn't hesitate. She held it tightly in front of him. Then she looked at me, not with fear, but with hope, and quietly asked, "So, if there's no contract anymore, will you stay anyway?" I looked down at her hand wrapped around mine. There was no contract. No $500,000 waiting for me. Just Claire. I could have walked away. It would have been simpler, for my career, for our reputations, for the whispers that were already spreading through the office. Instead, I took one step closer. "I'm staying," I said quietly. "Not because of the money. Not because you asked me to." I swallowed, my voice unsteady. "I'm staying because somewhere between late nights, cold coffee, and pretending we were just boss and employee, I fell in love with you." For a moment, she simply stared at me. Then she laughed through tears, a small, disbelieving laugh that quickly dissolved into a sob. "I kept telling myself you were only being kind," she whispered. "I thought if I admitted how I felt, I'd ruin your future. You didn't. You could lose your job. I can find another job. You could lose people. I'd rather lose their approval than lose the chance to be with you." Her eyes filled again. For the first time since we'd met, she didn't try to hide behind confidence or professionalism. She leaned forward and rested her forehead against mine. "I've been so lonely, Ethan. I know. You really choose all of this? The gossip. The age difference, the uncertainty." I smiled. "I choose you." The hallway around us faded into silence. She closed her eyes, letting herself believe those words at last. When she opened them again, there was a calmness I had never seen before. "Then tomorrow," she said softly, "I'll tell the board the truth. You'll be transferred out of my reporting line, and will face whatever comes next honestly." I nodded. "No more pretending." "No more pretending," she echoed. Our fingers intertwined once more, not as a boss and an employee, not as two people bound by a contract, but as two imperfect people finally choosing each other, whatever tomorrow might bring. The next few months weren't easy. The board approved Claire's decision to transfer me to another department. It ended every question about favoritism before it could grow into something uglier. Some people still whispered when we walked into company events together. We stopped trying to silence them. Love didn't erase the age difference. It didn't erase our fears. There were days when Claire worried I would wake up and realize I deserved someone younger. There were days when I wondered whether I was making her life harder instead of happier. So we talked. Sometimes late at night over takeout that had gone cold. Sometimes during long walks when neither of us knew exactly what to say. We learned that love wasn't built on dramatic promises. It was built on choosing each other again after every doubt. 6 months later, I took Claire back to the same office where she'd once offered me $500,000 to be her husband. She smiled the moment she walked inside. "I remember this room." "So do I." I reached into my jacket pocket. She looked at me with the same quiet curiosity she'd had that first rainy evening. This time, I didn't slide a contract across the desk. I placed a small ring box between us. There was never a price for my heart, I said softly. I just needed the courage to admit where it already belonged. Tears filled her eyes before I even finished speaking. Claire Bennett. I opened the box. Will you marry me because we love each other? She laughed through happy tears and nodded before I could repeat the question. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. In that moment, I realized the greatest gift Claire had ever offered me wasn't the money. It was the chance to meet the woman who taught me that real love isn't about age, status, or appearances. It's about finding the one person who makes you feel at home, and choosing them every single day. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? ****